will tell you this, all of the questions on the next test are going to be multiple choice. So multiple choice questions are good and bad. If you really know them, they're really good because you see the answer stand out. If you're just guessing, then it makes it pretty tough. So let's go on to chapter 9. Let's talk about a few of the, let's talk about some really interesting things that we haven't talked about. We have a lot of different muscles. You know, we talked about the cardiac muscles, and we talked about the muscles around your organs and different things. There is a type of muscle found in the iris of the eye. Wow, that actually allows your eye to allows the pupil to dilate, okay, and expand. And so this is the same kind of muscle that's found in the iris, but it's also found in blood vessels, inside of the blood vessels that allow the blood vessels to be able to contract also. Wow. So that allows us to be able to adjust blood pressure, be able to have elastic inside of our blood vessels. And that type of muscle is called a multi-unit smooth muscle. Okay, multi meaning several, unit smooth muscle. So multi-unit smooth muscle is a type of muscle found in the iris in the eye and in the blood vessels. Now I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about the heart. This is really amazing. I think you'll appreciate this just because there's so many cool things in human anatomy. Why can the cardiac muscle fibers contract longer than skeletal muscles? So I want to flex, and I want to pull this muscle, and I can only contract this so long, and after a while, literally what we say, we feel the burn, the lactic acid's in there. Why is it that muscle gets sore and that muscle gets tired, but my heart, that muscle just keeps working. That cardiac muscle is able to contract even for a long period of time. Wow, if somebody's having a heart attack, even that heart will do everything it can to try to keep contracting. So why can cardiac muscle fibers contract for longer periods than skeletal muscle fibers? And the answer is, okay, this is fascinating. Extracellular, E-X-T-R-A, extracellular, it's all one word. It means that it's released from the cell and absorbed into the cell. Extracellular calcium particles control the length of the contractions of the heart muscle. So isn't that interesting? So what you're telling me is that calcium in the body can cause a chemical reaction in the synapses, and that's exactly what happens in the heart. The heart muscles allow the calcium to come in, and and different than skeletal muscles, where we're flexing this muscle, the heart actually, when it needs to go longer, it can actually absorb more calcium, and it can flex and relax, go and relax. Okay, contract and relax. And if it needs to contract longer, it can literally absorb that extracellular calcium. And make the contractions longer in the heart muscle and the cardiac muscle. So that's amazing. That's amazing. Now the strongest flexor, okay, of the elbow. Okay, so when we talk about this. We talk about flexors, things that move it in, okay? So the strongest flexor of the elbow is called the brachialis. Now that's the muscle, okay? The muscle that allows us to be able to pull that elbow in, that's called the brachialis. And we always talk about that, and you know, we talk about all the different muscles. Once again, I want to talk to you again about something we had in the last test, okay? Flexing means that we decrease the angle, okay? So adduction means we move something to the midline, okay? And abduction means we move it away from the midline. Now, once again, you almost, and I look forward to all of you signing up for Biology 212. The first part of human anatomy, and this is a set deal, it's taught all over the, I guess, the world, but it's kind of a set deal of what the setup is in the first semester of human anatomy, and then the second semester of human anatomy brings in the whole picture. So there's so much in Biology 212. This is going to tie all this in. But we've got some basic areas here. But the brachialis is the strongest flexor of the elbow. Now, muscles that are not used, okay, muscles that are not used may disintegrate. They actually get smaller, and they undergo, the word is atrophy. A-T-R-O-P-H-Y, atrophy. Now, I don't know, hopefully you've never had a broken bone, but if you have and they put it in a cast, okay, then when you pull that out, that muscle has shrunk. That muscle has shrunk because most muscles are striated, and they actually work like this. As they pull, okay, as they pull, all right, as they pull and they stretch, they actually grow. They actually get stronger. Muscles grow with development. Muscles grow with work. All right. So isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting that things that are a muscle in the body have muscle tissue? All the different muscles that we have, the more we use them, the bigger we get. That's why we see somebody that works out a lot has bigger muscles. Okay, because the more we use that muscle, the bigger it gets. Now, later on, we're going to talk about the brain is a muscle. Now, that's a whole new concept. So the more we use our brain, the more it allows it to be able to work and cause a lot of different things to happen in the brain. So atrophy is degeneration of a muscle without use. Okay. Now, we say we tone our muscles. Tone refers to the state of contraction of a certain number of fibers within a muscle. So I was telling you that the muscle works like this. Okay, the muscle is kind of a sliding system. So it slides out. Okay, and it goes, and then when we contract, we push that muscle in, we develop all that energy, and it pulls it in. Okay. Well, the more of these fibers, okay, the more of these fibers that are moving in and out. Okay, the more of these fibers, we grow more fibers and we have more muscle. Okay. So these fibers are sliding in, sliding out, pulling on each other, okay? So the more of those fibers, all right, we talk about when we say toning the muscle, that refers to the contractional state of a certain number of fibers within a muscle, okay? So when we contract a muscle, okay, all right, and we look at the total number of fibers that are used in that muscle, that's called tone. Now, how do we keep muscle tone? All right, maybe you're going to be a physical therapist. Maybe you're going to be helping somebody. Maybe you just want to stay toned yourself. Well, you have to pick that particular muscle. If you want to tone your stomach, then you've got to work your abs or whatever muscle you're working. If you're going to tone your legs, you've got to work that muscle. So you've got to target that specific muscle. Now, what happens a lot of times is people will target one muscle, okay, and that muscle gets ridiculously big, and it carries the muscles around them. So in toning of a muscle, we have to target that exact muscle. That's why in a weight room or whatever, a lot of times it will say, put this seat directly right here, or hold yourself directly right here, because you don't want to be toning other muscles. Think you're toning those. And how are you toning them? You're getting a different number of contractions of muscle fibers. Okay. Well, that's just a couple of things in the muscles. We've covered a bunch there. Let's look at chapter 10, and chapter 10 is critical. We're going to talk about the sodium-potassium pump, and this is one of the major parts of human anatomy. It's when your entire body. Okay, this particular word's not on your test. We had it a little bit earlier. It's called homeostasis. Homeostasis means everything's in balance. Well, we have to have a combination of sodium and potassium in our body. We have a sodium-potassium pump, and we talk about that in great detail of when one's out of whack, and the other one's when one has too much or one has not enough. Sodium and potassium. Let's talk about this. So here's where we're going to start out. At resting potential. What is resting potential? That means at resting potential. That means before it's fired. At resting potential, sodium ions are most abundant, okay, on the outside of the cell. Okay, so when the muscle's not working or the cell's not working and it's at rest, whatever it is, a neuron, a muscle, whatever it is, that cell's at rest, then the sodium ions are more abundant on the outside, okay, of the cell, while the potassium ions are more abundant inside the cell. Now, what happens is whenever we begin to work the muscle, okay, or the neuron or whatever we need the sodium-potassium pump to do, then it switches. It's incredible. Then the sodium becomes more available inside the cell and the potassium becomes more available outside the cell. And when the sodium gets in there, it causes this contraction. When we want to uncontract that, okay, when we want to uncontract that, then we want to get the sodium, on the outside, and that causes it to relax. Wow, isn't that cool? So sodium is allowed to go in the cell to cause contractions. Potassium is in there to cause it to relax. So why is it that if we don't have enough electrolytes or enough sodium or enough potassium, why is it we wake up in the middle of the night with a cramp in our leg? Well, it's pretty simple, because in order for it to be contracted, okay, when it's at the resting state, the sodium's on the outside. Here it is. But we've got to have that sodium there. What if we don't have enough sodium in our body, okay, to go into the cell to cause it to contract? Then the muscle doesn't work. But what if we don't have enough potassium in our body to cause it to go in and relax? Then what do we have? We've got a cramp. Our body is saying, okay, relax, muscle, relax. But no, the sodium-potassium pumps off. There's not enough potassium to go in there. You hear people say all the time, oh, eat bananas, eat bananas. Well, there's a source of potassium. Sodium and potassium are critical in our body. The fascinating thing is that our body uses sodium and potassium, but we have to take them in our diet. Can you imagine a third world country that has absolutely no sodium, no potassium? Now, so why is it that we're saying too much salt's bad for us? Well, too much sodium messes up our sodium-potassium pump. Well, what's the heart? The heart's a muscle. So what's wrong with too much sodium, okay, or too much potassium? Because then it's causing our heart to beat in a different system than's normal. We need the right amount of sodium on the outside when it's resting, the right amount of sodium inside when it's contracting, the right amount of potassium inside when it's resting, the right amount of potassium on the outside when it's contracting. Sodium-potassium pump is critical for muscles. Now, excessive sleeping is mostly due to which neurotransmitter? And the answer is serotonin. Okay, once again, excessive sleeping is mostly due to an overabundance of serotonin. Now, serotonin is really interesting. I want to do another one. So levels of the neurotransmitters are affected that affect the mood elevators. Okay, so what's affecting your mood? That's a neurotransmitter, norepinephrine. 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 Norepinephrine is your mood. All right. So serotonin is your sleep. So it's really interesting. So if we're having too much sleep, or we can have an imbalance of serotonin or an imbalance of norepinephrine, and we could have depression, anxiety issues just by trying to get those in balance. Now, we're going to talk about in the next class how we can naturally get some of those balances, and depression and anxiety is a big thing. So we'll talk about how we can do those in a healthy way. And if you have anxiety or depression, I can tell you right away, the best thing to do is exercise. The best thing to do is get out and exercise and keep your brain occupied, keep your brain busy, and that helps the serotonin and the norepinephrine. Now the microglia, M-I-C-R-O-G-L-I, microglia cells are capable of removing a blood clot in the brain. Isn't that amazing? We have certain cells that can be produced by the body if it detects a blood clot in the brain, which can be lethal and you could die right away. So it's M-I-C-R-O, micro, and then G-L-I-A. So the microglia cells actually are capable of removing a blood clot in the brain. And then the most common neurotransmitter in the body, the one that connects all of these nerves, that causes all these neurons to fire, that is norepinephrine. So norepinephrine